What is going on, guys? Gaston right here, and today we're going to be talking about the R5, the R6, and the kits that kind of already put together. So we've got some SKUs for these products, so why don't we get talking about those right now. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and as you guys knew, we are very close to that very popular and powerful Canon announcement about the R5 finally and the R6. But we already know that Canon have put together some kits for those cameras, so let's talk about the options that we're going to have available. All right, the first thing that we know is that we are going to have an R5. You're going to be able to buy the camera only, and this camera is going to be the highest ticket price. It's going to be a camera that's going to be priced at around $4,000. We're assuming that it's going to be more in line of the $3,800, and it's going to be top of the line, kind of like a 5D Mark IV in the mirrorless world. So this camera, if you want to learn more about the specs, you can actually check this link right here. We have covered that before. But you're going to be able to get the camera body only, but also you're going to be able to get a kit. And this kit is going to come with a 24-to-1.5mm f4 L glass image stabilized USM technology for the focusing motor system. So this is actually a great news because I actually shot with a lens. That lens is super sharp. The shape form factor of the lens is much more like this 24-to-70mm, and it's not that heavy. So it's a pretty good lens if you don't own a 24-to-70 or 24-to-105 to get it. So that lens right now is actually selling on its own for $1,100. So if you're able to knock off $150, $200 for this lens, I think it's going to be a great buy for that camera. Let's talk about the R6. The R6, we don't know exactly the megapixel of that camera. There have been some rumors saying that it's going to be 20, 24, 26, but it is going to be a camera that is going to be priced much more affordable. It's going to have a little bit less of the features, but we're going to have incredible 4K features, and we're going to have embodied image stabilization. So you're going to be able to buy the camera on its own, camera body only, or also you're going to have the option for a kit. This kit is a little bit also lower priced, but I'm assuming that it's going to be an okay glass to get, especially because we're talking about the 24-to-1.5mm f4 to 7.1. Now, this one is not L glass, it's image stabilized, but it uses an STM technology, which is okay. It's a little bit much noisier when focusing on a little bit slower. Now, that lens alone is going right now for $400. So if you're able to shave up maybe $100 or $150, and that's going to be a steal, even though if you have a 24-to-70mm, just to get a lens for almost $250, $300 of that focal range is always going to come handy. Okay, so why don't we talk about some of the lenses that they're also going to be releasing, because the first one gets me really excited. We're talking about the 50mm f1.8. This one is going to be an image stabilized lens using the STM technology for focusing. My 50mm that I love a lot, my RF, is the f1.2, but this lens is a little bit actually bigger than what I wish this lens was. And a lot of the times, I don't need f1.2 when shooting, especially when traveling around. Would love to have a much lighter lens. So this one may actually be the perfect lens for traveling, 50mm f1.8, it is going to be image stabilized, whereas this lens is not image stabilized. Now remember, with the R5 and the R6, you're going to be able to combine the 5.5 stops of image stabilization of the camera with any of the lenses that have image stabilizations. And some of the lenses are going to have up to 2.5 stops of image stabilization, making a total of 8 stops of image stabilization. I mean, I think this is the first time a camera manufacturer, manages to get a stop of image stabilization. We would have to see if indeed it's going to be up to 8 stops of image stabilization and how good it's going to be. Well, we are assuming that it's going to be pretty good. So pretty excited about that. So keep that in mind when getting now a lens and making sure that it is image stabilized. That's going to have some added value if you're planning to shoot photography and video. Now moving to the second lens, we are talking about a 70mm to 200mm f4. This is going to be also an L glass image stabilized using the ultrasonic motor USM technology. So I actually have the 70 to 200 f2.8 image stabilized, and this lens has been a great performance. It's a little bit expensive, but if Canon manages to create that lens with the same shape form factor, one of the properties about this lens is that it's very short and somewhat, like I mentioned before, very light. If they manage to make it at the same size and probably even lighter if it's an f4, that is going to be a hot seller for Canon. Next lens on the list also gets me really excited being a portrait photographer. We're talking about an 85mm f2, but this lens is actually a macro lens and it's going to be image stabilized and also had the STM technology. Now, my 85mm RF is this lens that I love this lens. This one is an f1.2, but this lens is actually really heavy, especially if I want to bring this lens plus my 50mm. I'm carrying a lot of weight right there with just two lenses, and having a smaller option, a cheaper option, and like I mentioned before, I not always need f1.2. Another thing, this lens doesn't have image stabilization, so this lens that is going to be cheaper, smaller, lighter is going to have image stabilization, so it's a lens that you can also use for video handheld footage, so it's going to be really good. Another lens that is actually really exciting, probably a lens that I'm going to get, is the 100 to 500mm f4 to 7.1 image stabilized, and this lens is going to be also a USM lens using the ultrasonic motors. This one could actually be a really good lens to add to my collection, because the most I have is this 70 to 200, and it is right there, and I always wanted to have a little bit of a super telephoto lens, and I think this one is going to do it for me. They're going to make a 600 and a 800mm at an f11. These lenses are going to have image stabilization, and they're going to have the STM technology. f11, let's talk a little bit about f11. You know, 600mm f11, it's a lens that is going to constrain you, in my opinion, too much, especially if you want to shoot, you know, outdoor, you're doing wildlife photography and you want to start shooting, you know, around the sunset time or closer to night. f11 is not going to cut it, definitely. So, but anyway, let me know, you wildlife photographer, why would you pick this lens, or anyone that would find this lens useful, especially being 600 and the other one is 800mm. Now, the other thing is that we're going to have two converters. One is going to be 1.4x and the other one is going to be 2x. So if you own a 70 to 200, now you can actually make it up to a 400mm. Now, remember, with those converters, you always lose a stop of light. So I'm actually really excited about this announcement, and I think the R6 is actually going to flip the tables, and a lot of people are going to start praising this camera more than the R5, and we're going to hear a lot of reviews for this camera, because I think it's going to be priced right, and it's going to have incredible feature that most of us are going to enjoy, and it's going to be more than enough. So this is going to wrap it up for today, guys. Drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think about these releases and lenses. Which one are you going to go for? And as always, if you had enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for the channel for more content like this one. So until then, guys, see you later. Going to bed.